All right. Okay. So now we'll start with some prayers. So someone will put the prayers on the screen. Great. It's working now. So while reciting the prayers, if you can, imagine the Buddha in the space in front of you. And you can imagine many other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas around him, and also the gurus, the spiritual masters of the lineage, who've kept the Buddhist teachings alive since his time until the present, and all of our present spiritual teachers. So you can imagine them there in the space in front, or you can just think of the Buddha and think that he embodies all of those other objects of refuge. So then we have an object in mind as we take refuge and generate bodhicitta, the altruistic intention to become a Buddha ourselves, so that we can help all other sentient beings, our kind mothers. So all of our happiness, all of our good experiences from beginningless time all the way up to enlightenment are due to the kindness of others. We are dependent on others for all of these things. And so it's important to appreciate that, appreciate them, and really open our hearts with compassion and love for all living beings and generate the wish to help them. And this is the best way that we can help them, by becoming a Buddha ourselves. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence, and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamneyatayami. Let's recite the mantra of the Buddha a few times. While doing that, it's good to imagine light flowing from the Buddha into yourself. You can also imagine it going out in all directions and reaching all sentient beings. And our bodies and minds are filled with this light. It purifies all negative things like afflictive emotions in our mind, and negative karma and obscurations and so on. So there's kinds of suffering and causes of suffering. They get purified, and then our positive potential, our Buddha nature, all the good qualities we have that can be developed further. So those get nourished so that they can grow and develop further and eventually become enlightened qualities. Tayata Om Mune Mune Maha Munaye Soha. 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 So let's just sit quietly for a few minutes to make sure our minds are settled down in the present, the here and now, and in a good state, having a good motivation for joining this class. And then after that, I'll just lead a short guided meditation on the lines of bodhicitta, the aspiration for enlightenment. So last week, we started meditating on one of the main methods for generating bodhicitta, which is called equalizing and exchanging self and others. And the first point in that meditation is equalizing self and others. And in a simple way, that involves realizing that we are all the same. Oneself and all other people, all other living beings are the same in that we want to be happy and we don't want to suffer. It's kind of a fairly simple idea. And there's a way of meditating on this point of equalizing self and others that involves 9 points. And this comes from Trichang Rinpoche, the junior tutor of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And so I thought tonight we'll meditate on the first 3 of the 9 points, and then we'll gradually work our way through the 9. So contemplating these 9 points is a more expansive way of generating a sense of the equality of ourselves and others. So the first 3 points contain reasons that are related to others, focusing more on others. So the first point is basically what we meditated on last time, and that is to simply think that every single living being, every being that has mind, awareness, thoughts, feelings, all of us have the same wish to be happy and to be free from suffering. So given that, is it right for us to discriminate among living beings and wish only some of them to be happy and free from suffering, but not feel that way towards others? So just contemplate that and ask yourself if there's any good reason to discriminate and only want some beings to be happy, but not others. And then for the second point, imagine that you are working in a food bank or in some kind of famine relief program, and there are 10 people standing in front of you. All of them are hungry. All of them are in need of food. So would it be right for you to give food only to some of those people and not give it to the others? And then for the third point, imagine that you are a doctor, and in your waiting room are 10 people who are all suffering from flu-like symptoms. So they're all equally suffering from basically the same symptoms. So in that situation, would it be right for you to help only some of those patients and send some of them away saying, I'm not going to help you, I'm not going to take care of you? So when we contemplate in this way, we probably can see that, yeah, it doesn't make sense to discriminate. And yes, I really should help all people, all beings equally. But then we need to check how we act in our daily life when we are among people. If we are able to have this same kind of attitude that everyone equally deserves our care, our concern, our help. So be on the lookout for that in your daily life. Just check to see how your mind actually does work in relation to other people and other beings. And if you do notice that there is some discrimination, there's some bias, don't feel bad, don't beat yourself up. It's normal, and it does take time to integrate these contemplations into our mind and into our life. And just be glad that you are able to recognize that your attitude towards others isn't completely equal, so that then you can work on changing that, improving that. Okay, so so this is the fourth class in this course, in which we are looking at the 70 topics. So the 70 topics are the main points in the text Ornament for Clear Realization, or Abhisamayalankara by Maitreya. So, a very vast text with a huge amount of material. So we're just looking at kind of an overview of the main topics. And the 70 topics are divided among the 8 chapters of the Ornament. And so far, we're still on the first chapter, chapter 1. And the main subject matter of chapter 1 is the exalted knower of all aspects, which is another way of saying omniscient mind, enlightened mind, Buddhist mind. And that subject, exalted knower of all aspects, has 10 topics. So there's 10 topics in chapter 1. And last week we started looking at the second topic, which is called Mahayana Instructions. So these are instructions for Bodhisattvas on what they need to do in order to progress along the path and reach their goal of enlightenment, omniscient mind. And that topic, again, is topic number 2. Mahayana Instructions is topic number 2, and it has 10 divisions. Okay, and we started looking at some of the divisions, like the 2 truths. That was the first of those 10 divisions of Mahayana Instructions. And I just mentioned all 10 of the divisions of Mahayana Instructions, but we don't have time to go into all of them. But before we move on, from Mahayana Instructions, I would like to talk about one more of the divisions, which is the path of seeing. So this is actually number 9 in the list of the 10 divisions of Mahayana Instructions. So if I made some slides for tonight, if they could be put up on the screen. I think that's the wrong slides. That's last week's slides.
Sorry about that. Bear with me.
So they should be by date. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
So thank you. So the path of seeing is the third of the 5 paths, and it's a really important milestone along the way to Buddhahood. It's the point at which a Bodhisattva attains the direct realization of emptiness and is able to finally start eliminating the obscurations that need to be eliminated in order to attain Buddhahood. So among the 70 topics, the path of seeing comes up a number of times. But here, in this context of Mahayana Instructions, it's talked about in terms of how it is the antidote to a certain number of the obscurations that need to be eliminated. So the first bullet point says, the path of seeing is so called because it is the first time one directly sees or realizes the truth, the emptiness of true existence of all phenomena. So of course, prior to the path of seeing, a Bodhisattva has been, learning about emptiness and meditating on emptiness, and gained a inferential, conceptual realization of emptiness. And then they continued meditating on emptiness, and they finally break through to have this direct perception, a direct, non-conceptual realization of emptiness. So that's a really, really important achievement because it's only the direct realization of emptiness that has the power to eliminate the obscurations. So just an intellectual or conceptual realization of emptiness doesn't have that kind of power. So it requires this direct realization. And so in this section of the text, it mentions what obscurations are eliminated at this point. And so I did mention before that the path of seeing eliminates acquired obscurations. So those are the ones that occur due to having studied wrong tenets or other kinds of information that we learned, that we acquired from our learning, from our education. So obscurations of that nature are eliminated by the path of seeing. And there's still the innate obscurations, the ones that we're born with, that we've been carrying with us from beginningless time. And so those are eliminated later on the path of meditation. So we first have to abandon these. And as I mentioned too, this school, this Svatantrika school, says that both types of obscurations, the afflictive obscurations, as well as the knowledge obscurations, the obscurations to omniscience, both of them are eliminated together at the same time. Okay, so with the path of seeing, we abandon the acquired afflictive obscurations as well as the acquired knowledge obscurations. And there are numbers of these. You might probably curious how they come up with those numbers. There's 112 acquired afflictive obscurations and 108 acquired knowledge obscurations. So the way those numbers come about is there are three realms, the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realms. So this is one way of explaining samsara. There's these three different levels of samsara. We're in the desire realm, but there's also the form realm, which are devas who have attained high levels of concentration. And then there's the formless realm, which is even higher. We don't even have physical bodies. And they say we've been in all of those realms before in our past lives. We've been everywhere in samsara, so we've been in all those realms. And there are certain afflictions for each of those three levels, desire, form, and formless realm. Okay, so you don't have to worry about these numbers. It's not really important, but just if you're curious, I'm going to tell you. So there's a total of 10 afflictions. There's 6 root afflictions, anger, attachment, ignorance, arrogance or pride, doubt, and wrong views. So those are the 6 root afflictions you probably learned before. And wrong views has 5 divisions. Okay, so if you count all of those together, it makes 10 afflictions. Those are the main afflictions, the root afflictions. And then, so those 10 afflictions times 4, 4 noble truths. So we have, each of those 10 afflictions for each of the 4 noble truths, true sufferings, true origins, true cessations, true paths. So that makes 40, okay, 40 afflictions for the desire realm. So this is just the desire realm. So we have 40 afflictions for the desire realm, 10 times 4. Then for the form and the formless realms, there's no anger. They don't get angry. So you knock anger out of the list of 10 afflictions. So you have only 9. So again, it's 9 times 4 is 36. So you have 36 for the form realm, 36 for the formless realm. So you add up all that together, 40 plus 36 plus 36 means 112. So those are the 112 acquired afflictive obscurations. And then the 108 acquired knowledge obscurations. So these are conceptions of true existence. Okay, so the knowledge obscurations, the obscurations that prevent omniscience, are mainly the conception of true existence. And there's 36 of those for each of the 3 realms. I'm not going to mention what they are. It comes later in the text, but it's complicated. We're not going to go into those. But yeah, there's different ways that we can conceive true existence, or different objects towards which we conceive true existence. So they come up with 36 for each of the 3 realms. So 36 times 3 makes 108. So that's how they come up with those numbers. So, but the good news is all of those get abandoned at one go. Okay, you don't have to do them one by one. So as soon as you attain this direct, non-conceptual realization of emptiness, then all of those obscurations just poof, they disappear at once in one go. But those are just the acquired ones. There's still the innate ones that have to be eliminated later. The third bullet point says, at the time of attaining the Mahayana path of seeing, the Bodhisattva also attains the first ground, or bhumi. Okay, so this is another division of a Bodhisattva's path, the 10 grounds, the 10 bhumis. And the first of the 10 grounds starts with a path of seeing. So it's like simultaneous. And this first ground, each of the 10 grounds has a name. The name of the first ground is called the very joyful, or the joyous. And the reason it's called that is because there's so much joy. So one reason the Bodhisattva is so joyful is because they realize they're getting closer to enlightenment. And they're also joyful because they can see that they'll be able to help sentient beings more and more as they go along. So that's the thing that gives them a great deal of joy. Reaching enlightenment quickly, or at least sooner than they were before, being able to help sentient beings. So then the next slide gives divisions of the path of seeing. So we often hear about how the path of seeing is this, first direct realization of emptiness, but we don't hear much else about the path of seeing. So I don't know if you've ever wondered about that. Well, what else happens on the path of seeing? And how long does it last? I don't think there is a definite amount of time. I haven't heard it, and it probably depends on each individual, but it seems like it could last a long time. So you might be on this path of seeing for a long time until you reach the next path, which is the path of meditation. And so there are different experiences that one has on the path of seeing that are all path of seeing. So there's three main divisions. The first one is called the exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise. So the term exalted wisdom is yeshi in Tibetan. Sometimes it's translated as pristine wisdom. So it's a special kind of wisdom, and it's actually synonymous. That term is synonymous with path and ground. So it is a higher wisdom rather than just ordinary wisdom that we might have, conventional wisdom and so on. So it is an exalted type of wisdom. Okay, so just before attaining the path of seeing, a bodhisattva is in meditative equipoise. They're meditating on emptiness, but it's still conceptual. Yeah. There's still a mental image of emptiness. It's become very, very thin, very fine. It's almost gone, but it's still there. And finally, that mental image vanishes completely, and they see emptiness directly. And when that happens, when the mental image vanishes and they have this direct seeing, direct perception of emptiness, then that's the first moment of the path of seeing, and it's called an uninterrupted path. And this term uninterrupted path means that's the actual antidote to the obscurations. That's the actual thing that wipes out the obscurations. And like I say, they're all gone at once in one moment. All those 112 and 108 obscurations get, eliminated, knocked out in one go. So an uninterrupted path then it's a direct realization of emptiness that has the power to eliminate or abandon a certain portion of obscurations. That lasts only a moment. I don't know how long a moment is, but anyway, that's what they say. It's just a moment. The next moment is called a liberated path. So that's letter B. So a liberated path is a continuation of that same direct realization of emptiness, just like the second moment of that direct realization of emptiness. The reason it's called a liberated path is because the mind is now liberated from those obscurations that needed to be abandoned. So now they're gone. So that's why it's called a liberated path. And the reason that the first one is called the uninterrupted path is because it leads directly without interruption to the liberated path. So these are just like one moment to the next. The liberated path also lasts only a moment, because a bodhisattva has eliminated what needed to be eliminated and doesn't need to hang out anymore. And so, in the next moment, the bodhisattva arises from meditation, and they go to number 2. We're skipping over C right now. Number 2, which is called Exalted Wisdom of Subsequent Attainment. So this simply means break time, the time in between meditation. Sometimes it's called break time or post-meditation. And when a bodhisattva is in that period of time, they're not just hanging around drinking coffee, but they are engaging in bodhisattva deeds, the practices of like the first 5 perfections. Giving and ethics and patience and so on, because they need to accumulate merit. The bodhisattva needs to accumulate merit to be able to continue on the path and reach their goal of enlightenment. But from time to time, they will go back into meditation, meditative equipoise, and sometimes they're meditating on emptiness because they need to continue familiarizing their mind with emptiness, build up the power of that mind. And so that would be letter C. Okay, so letter C, back under number 1, again, it's an exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise, but it's neither an uninterrupted path nor a liberated path. So it's just another state of meditative equipoise. And it could be on emptiness. It could be meditating on emptiness, but it could be on another topic, such as selflessness of persons, the emptiness of a permanent, like self-sufficient, substantially existent person, or impermanence, or non-duality, the main topic that solitary realizers meditate on. But anyway, they're meditating deeply on one of those topics. So that's letter C. And then the third type of path of seeing is called exalted wisdom that is neither meditative equipoise nor subsequent attainment. And so what's included there are non-manifest realizations in the continuum of a person on the path of seeing. So, for example, after the bodhisattva has attained this initial direct realization of emptiness, the uninterrupted path, and then the liberated path, and then they arise from meditation and start doing bodhisattva deeds, their wisdom realizing emptiness becomes non-manifest. It doesn't go away. It's still there in their mind. This is according to Jetsun Chokyi Gyaltsen, but there are different opinions about this. For example, Panchen Sonam Drakpa, who's another textbook writer, mainly I think for Drepung Losling Monastery, he doesn't agree that there are such things as non-manifest realization. I'm not sure how he explains things, but anyway, we're following Jetsun Chokyi Gyaltsen's explanation. And he says, yeah, the wisdom realizing emptiness in the mind of a bodhisattva, it never completely goes away. When they're out of meditation, when they're going about their daily activities, it becomes non-manifest. So it's still in their mind in a non-manifest way. We heard about that before with the bodhicitta. For example, when somebody's a bodhisattva and they have uncontrived bodhicitta, it's always there in their mind, even when they're meditating on emptiness. It just becomes non-manifest. So it's still there in their mind, and it affects their mind and affects their meditation, but it's just not in a manifest form. So those kinds of realizations that are non-manifest are included in number 3. So if you're hearing this for the first time, it may be a bit overwhelming, but I found it very interesting just to know more about the Bodhisattva's path and what a Bodhisattva does. They're not always in meditative equipoise. Sometimes they are, in deep meditation, focused on emptiness. But at other times, they're doing other activities like helping sentient beings. And during that time, that realization of emptiness is still there in their mind, but in a non-manifest form. And then when they go back into meditation and they're directly realizing emptiness, their bodhicitta and their love and their compassion, all these qualities for the benefit of sentient beings, those are still there in their mind too, but in a non-manifest form. And all of those are path of seeing. All of those different realizations are path of seeing. And the path of meditation, the next path, which we're not going to look at right now, also has these three divisions. But the path of seeing, so the path of seeing has only one uninterrupted path and one liberated path. But the path of meditation, because again, the path of meditation is the antidote to the innate obscurations, like innate afflictions, innate grasping at true existence. And those are not eliminated all at one go. They are eliminated in layers, levels. There's actually 10 different levels of those. And so there are 10 uninterrupted paths on the path of meditation. So each time a bodhisattva gain the wisdom directly realizing emptiness becomes strong enough, powerful enough to shave off another layer of afflictions, of obscurations, then you have an uninterrupted path, followed by a liberated path. So there's 10 uninterrupted paths along the path of meditation, and they probably last over a very long period of time. There's only 9 liberated paths, because the final liberated path that follows the last uninterrupted path is Buddhahood. So after the last uninterrupted path, which shaves off the subtlest, the most subtle level of obscurations preventing omniscience, all the obscurations are gone. So in the next moment, you're a Buddha. You're no longer on the path of meditation. You're now on the path of no more learning. So that last liberated path is Buddhahood. It's kind of hard to understand all of this. When we were studying in the master's program, we had charts that helped. Maybe I can share some of those with you. It's just, helpful to be able to look at it visually. But it's still pretty mind-blowing what the bodhisattvas do. Okay, so this is it for Mahayana Instructions. Like I said, we don't have time to go into every single detail of that. But just to summarize Mahayana Instructions, there are 10 divisions, and the 10 divisions teach what a bodhisattva needs to know and practice in order to reach enlightenment. And all the instructions include the advice that a bodhisattva needs to view everything as empty of true existence, but still existing conventionally. So maintaining the two truths. Things exist conventionally, but not ultimately. They're empty of ultimate or true existence. So they need to keep those in mind and stay within the borders, the boundaries of the two truths, to avoid falling into the two extremes. So now I'd like to move on to topic number 3. This is, again, we're still in chapter 1. So the numbering, it says topic 1.3. 1 means chapter 1, 3 means third topic. So third topic of chapter 1. I'm going to move a little faster now. I will still go into detail with some of these topics, but yeah, we can't spend a lot of time on each one. So the topic 3 is the Mahayana path of preparation. It's a little bit funny we're kind of going backwards. We just did the path of seeing, now we're going to the path of meditation. But yeah, anyway, I don't know why the topics are given in the order they are. But it does, I mean, once we know the importance of the path of seeing, we have to reach that. Then we also understand the importance of the path of preparation, because that's what will get us to the path of seeing. So the path of preparation begins, the first bullet point says, it begins when a bodhisattva attains the union of calm abiding and special insight, observing emptiness of true existence. And this is a wisdom arising from meditation. So we're probably familiar with the terms calm abiding and special insight, and the union of calm abiding and special insight. That's explained in the Long Rim. And I think I always thought that special insight is always about emptiness, but that's actually not the case. Special insight, or vipassana is the Sanskrit term, Laktung in Tibetan. You can have this into any object, and you don't even have to be a Buddhist, because non-Buddhists, like in India, some of the non-Buddhist schools know how to attain the concentrations, the jhanas. You first develop calm abiding, and then you engage in meditation where you compare a lower level, for example, the desire realm where we are now. You compare that and you look at how gross it is, how awful it is, how there's so many problems in the desire realm. And then you contemplate the form realm, the first level of the form realm, which is called the first concentration. And you think about, oh, that's such a better place. It's so, much nicer, not much suffering. So you do this kind of analysis, this analytical meditation, comparing those two levels. And by doing that, you overcome your attachment to the desire realm, and you attain the first concentration. It's a process you go through. I'm just making it short here. But that's how one attains the first concentration, the first jhana. It's by doing that kind of analysis. And in the process of doing that, you attain special insight, you attain vipassana into that particular topic, the grossness of the desire realm and the peacefulness of the form realm. Okay, so that's a kind of special insight that enables you to overcome and not completely eliminate your attachment to the desire realm, but at least suppress it strongly so that it's, not jumping around in your mind. And then you're able to attain the first jhana. So anyway, the point is, special insight isn't only into emptiness, but a bodhisattva, in order to progress along the path, needs to develop special insight into emptiness. And so they develop calm abiding, and then they engage in analysis, analytical meditation on emptiness, and eventually they are able to attain the union of calm abiding and special insight. And the criteria for that is when you are able to experience the bliss of pliancy through analysis. Calm abiding is when you have the bliss of pliancy from concentration, from keeping your mind single-pointedly concentrated on one object. So that's the point at which you have calm abiding. But then when you engage in analysis, you start doing analysis like, what is the nature of the eye, or what is the nature of my body? then the mind gets kind of disturbed. It's difficult to keep that, very calm, peaceful state. But eventually, a person is able to have a very focused, calm state on emptiness and achieve the bliss of pliancy from doing analysis on emptiness. So that's the point at which you attain special insight. And special insight and the union of calm abiding and special insight are the same. Those two terms are equivalent. So it isn't that you first have special insight and then the union of calm abiding and special insight, but those two things are actually synonymous. So when a bodhisattva has that achievement of the union of calm abiding and special insight on emptiness, not some other object, that's the point at which they attain the path of seeing, Mahayana path of seeing. And it's also called a wisdom arising from meditation. So you've probably heard this as well, these three types of wisdom. As they say, we need to engage in these three different practices: hearing, contemplation or thinking, and meditation. This is kind of a threefold process for learning and progressing on the path. And then there's a wisdom related to each of these activities. So the first is called the wisdom arising from hearing, and that comes mainly from hearing, like listening to teachings, but I think also study. When we study on our own, we read books or internet, listen to talks on the internet and so on. So acquiring information leads to a certain kind of wisdom or knowing, understanding of the teachings. And then the second is wisdom arising from contemplation or thinking. So this is when we, think more about the teachings and develop a deeper understanding of them. And so when we're studying or just thinking about the teachings while we're going for a walk or just sitting, you don't have to be in formal meditation. So then this is the wisdom arising from thinking. And then the third type of wisdom arising from meditation. So this is actually synonymous with a union of calm abiding and special insight. So this isn't just ordinary meditation, like, if you don't have calm abiding, but strictly speaking, the wisdom arising from meditation comes about when you have a union of calm abiding and special insight. And so it's a pretty high level of wisdom. So when you have the wisdom arising from meditation, the union of calm abiding and special insight into emptiness, focused on emptiness, that's the point of attaining the path of seeing. The path of preparation. And then there's 4 divisions of the path of preparation. So the next slide just briefly shows those. They have different names. First one is called heat. So when you first have the union of calm abiding and special insight onto emptiness, you attain the heat level of the path of preparation. The reason it's called heat is because you're getting close to the Mahayana path of seeing, which is like a fire that burns up acquired afflictions. So you're starting to get close to that, starting to get warm. And the second one is called peak. The reason for that is because from this point on, a bodhisattva's roots of virtue can no longer be destroyed by wrong views. So you've probably heard that before, that virtue, when we create virtue, we have to be careful that it doesn't get destroyed. One way it can get destroyed is with anger. If you get angry, then roots of virtue, good karma can get destroyed. Another way that it can be destroyed is with wrong views, generating, the thought there's no such thing as karma, there's no such thing as rebirth, and there's no such thing as enlightenment. So the peak level is the point at which that can no longer happen. Bodhisattva can no longer generate wrong views that would destroy the roots of virtue. So they're kind of at a peak at that point. Third level is called Forbearance. And the reason for this name is because the Bodhisattva has attained great forbearance or fearlessness regarding emptiness. So emptiness can be scary. Yeah, you may have heard that when you have some experience, some insight into emptiness, it can be quite frightening because we're so accustomed to believing in an I, a real me, and, you know, been in that state from beginningless time. So it can be quite unsettling or even frightening to, you know, realize I doesn't exist the way we always thought it did, and other things as well. All phenomena don't exist the way they normally appear and the way we've always believed them to. So at this point, the Bodhisattva has strong courage or fearlessness regarding emptiness. They're able to bear it. And also, from this point on, a Bodhisattva is free from rebirth in the lower realms due to karma and afflictions. When I first heard that, I thought, wow. I mean, up until that point, it's still possible to be born in the lower realms due to karma and affliction. That's pretty scary. Yeah. So we have work to do. I mean, we can avoid unfortunate rebirths by taking refuge at the time of death and so on, but there's no certainty what kind of state of mind we'll be in at the time of death. And we could be in a very negative state of mind, and that might lead us to an unfortunate rebirth. So, yeah. The fourth level of the path of preparation is called Supreme Mundane Quality. And the reason it's called that is because this is the highest level of an ordinary being or mundane being. Because after this, one becomes an Arya, and an Arya is no longer an ordinary being, a mundane being. So there's a kind of dividing line at that point. So this is the final moment of being an ordinary being, and right after this, one becomes an Arya, the direct realization of emptiness. And it said each of the four levels also has subdivisions into small, middle, and great. So it takes time to pass from one to the next. And as one is progressing along these four levels, one is suppressing various types of manifest conceptions of true existence. Okay, so that's the main thing that bodhisattvas are concerned about overcoming, is the conception of true existence. And so they're not yet able to abandon them while you're still on the path of preparation. You can't abandon the conception of true existence, but you can suppress them. And by suppressing them, then it becomes easier to abandon them when you reach the path of seeing. Yeah, so it says your ability to suppress manifest conceptions of true existence, meaning, you're able to stop the conception of true existence from coming up in your mind, manifesting in your mind. You have a strong realization of emptiness, and it gets stronger and stronger as time goes on. So you're able to really suppress conceptions of true existence. And that ability gets stronger as you progress through the four levels. Okay, so let's move on to topic number 4. And this has a technical term, but it's about Buddha nature. the popular term is Buddha nature, but the technical term is lineage abiding in the nature. Sometimes it's translated as naturally abiding lineage. There's different ways of translating it, but yeah, this is the term in the text for what we call Buddha nature. So topic number 4 is lineage abiding in the nature, the support of Mahayana achievings. And this term achieving comes up a lot, and our teacher explained it just means a practice of a bodhisattva practice or a bodhisattva path. But it's got this technical term of achieving. Okay, so this topic then is about Buddha nature. The term Buddha nature is kind of popular, but it's not really the term in the text. The term is Rik or Gotra in Sanskrit, and that term it's kind of hard to translate. Like different translations, some translate it as class or type, caste. I guess it does have different uses. So like in India, they have different castes. So it's that term Rik that's used for castes, but that wouldn't be an appropriate translation here. So our translator used the term lineage, translated Rik as lineage. Another translation is disposition. So yeah, different translators have different preferences. But I'll still use the term Buddha nature since that's the one we're most familiar with. And so in general, Buddha nature, the general meaning of Buddha nature is something that will transform into the body of a Buddha body or a Buddha kaya, okay? And we don't learn about the Buddha bodies until the last chapter. The last chapter of the Ornament is all about Buddhahood and the 4 kayas, but we've probably heard about the kayas, the Buddha bodies, the Buddha kayas. So anything that will transform into a kaya, a body of a Buddha, is Buddha nature. And in general, there's 2 kinds of Buddha nature. The first one, called lineage abiding in the nature or naturally abiding lineage. So this refers to the emptiness of the mind of someone who's the emptiness of a mind that still has stains or afflictions or obscurations, a mind that's not completely purified, but a stained mind, a defiled mind, an afflicted mind. Okay, so that's like my mind. So sentient beings who haven't eliminated all the afflictions and all the obscurations. So the true nature, the ultimate nature of our mind is emptiness, emptiness of true existence. So that's the meaning of naturally abiding lineage or lineage abiding in the nature. When we become Buddha, that transforms into the nature body of a Buddha, the Svabhavika Kaya, Sanskrit, something like that. Nature body is a lot easier to say. So the nature body of a Buddha is the emptiness of Buddha's mind. Okay, so the emptiness of Buddha's mind. So right now we have a mind, it's still got afflictions, defilements in it, but it's empty of true existence. And when we have cleared away all the defilements, obscurations, all the things that prevent our mind from becoming enlightened, then the emptiness of our mind will become the emptiness of Buddha's mind, which is called the nature body. The second type of Buddha nature is sometimes it's called the transforming Buddha nature or developing Buddha nature or lineage. And this includes aspects of our mind that will transform into one of the other Buddha bodies, Buddha kayas. For example, the wisdom truth body, which is the Buddha's omniscient mind. That's the Dharmakaya, or Jnana Dharmakaya. And so the Buddha's mind, mind that's totally free of all faults, all obscurations, and fully omniscient, able to see all phenomena. So our mind at present, the clear and knowing nature of our mind, will one day transform into that kind of mind. Once we clear away all the obscurations and we develop all the qualities and realization that we need, then this very mind we have will become that, the wisdom truth body, the Dharmakaya. And also qualities like our love. We have compassion, we have patience, we have wisdom. So the positive qualities, the constructive qualities of our mind, those are also part of our transforming or developing Buddha nature, because those will transform into the qualities of the Buddha's mind, the Buddha's compassion, the Buddha's love. And then there's the form bodies, or Rupakaya. Okay, so those are actually the manifestations of the Buddha's mind, the wisdom body manifesting in those forms, like the Nirmanakaya and the Sambhogakaya. So there's two types of form bodies. So basically then, there are aspects of our being at present that will one day transform into these kayas of a Buddha. And according to this school's Svatantrika Madhyamika, all sentient beings have both types of Buddha nature, Buddha lineage, and all sentient beings will one day become Buddhas and have these 4 Buddhakayas. And in this, in chapter 1, the focus is mainly on the first type of Buddha nature, the lineage abiding in the nature. And even though all sentient beings do have the emptiness of their mind, in particular in this topic in chapter 1, it's talking about the lineage in the mind of a bodhisattva on the path of preparation and above. Okay, so and it's said to be the supportive Mahayana achievings in the title of this type of Buddha nature, because the emptiness of the mind of a bodhisattva on the path of seeing and above is something that helps them achieve the bodhisattva's practices and the bodhisattva's path and progress along the path. So it might sound a little strange to say that emptiness is something that can support the bodhisattva's path. So the next slide shows 2 ways in which lineage or Buddha nature, the emptiness of the mind, supports the achievings. So one way is, since the mind is empty of true existence, then it can be changed. Because if our mind was truly existing, which is how it appears, we see everything as if it's truly existing, independently existing. If our mind was like that, truly independently existing, it wouldn't be able to change. It would always be the same. And so we couldn't purify our mind of the stains, the obscurations, the afflictions, and so on. So our mind would be stuck the way it is forever and ever. It would never change. So we wouldn't be able to progress along the path and attain enlightenment. So even if we were to practice meditation and try to generate compassion and love and generosity and so on and so forth, our mind would still be the same. It would be stuck with defilements and obscurations and wouldn't be able to reach enlightenment. So since that's not the case, since our mind is empty of true existence, and it does exist dependently, then it is possible to change our mind, to transform our mind through practice, like meditating on the long rim, doing purification practice, accumulating merit, practicing the 6 perfections, and so on. And also the afflictions, the anger, attachment, ignorance, and so on, they are also empty of inherent existence, and they are not in the nature of the mind. So that's something that's emphasized a lot, that these afflictions, even though they're there in our mind, and they've been in our mind from beginningless time, but they're not in the nature of the mind, meaning that they're not permanent fixtures in our mind, but they are temporary, they're transitory. And we can see that for ourselves by watching our mind, watching our experiences. We can see that they come and go. And so both the mind itself and the stains, the afflictions of the mind, are empty of true existence. And therefore, it's possible to change our mind, to transform our mind, purify the afflictions, and bring our mind to enlightenment. So that's one way in which lineage, and meaning the emptiness of the mind, is a support for Bodhisattva practices and Bodhisattva paths. And the second point, by meditating on and realizing the emptiness of true existence of the mind, a Bodhisattva can abandon the obscurations and attain all the realizations of the path. So I think that's the main point in this section of the text, is that this is an object of meditation for a Bodhisattva. I mean, a Bodhisattva meditates on emptiness of true existence of all phenomena. They have to realize all phenomena are empty of true existence, but in particular, emptiness of the mind, their own mind. So meditating on and realizing how their mind is empty of true existence, that enables a Bodhisattva to abandon the obscurations and attain all the realizations of the path. There's a very nice quote in Meditation on Emptiness by Jeffrey Hopkins, which says, "The emptiness of the mind is the most marvelous quality of the mind, allowing it to be transformed into the wisdom of a Buddha." So emptiness, is a kind of difficult object to understand, quite abstract and hard to grasp, but it's important to remember that it is such an important object, and we do have to continue learning about it, thinking about it, meditating on it, and doing everything we can to familiarize with it and eventually realize it. That's what enables our mind to transform, become Buddha's mind. So just a bit more about the lineage, Buddha nature, on the next slide. In the Ornament, it often talks about awakening the Mahayana lineage. And the meaning of that, awakening the Mahayana lineage, is when one generates great compassion. So, all sentient beings have within themselves the potential for enlightenment, the lineage or Buddha nature to become enlightened, but most sentient beings aren't aware of it. They don't even realize that they have that potential. And so it's not awakened. Their Buddha nature is not awakened. So this text says the point at which the Mahayana lineage is awakened is when one generates great compassion. And so actually that happens even before one becomes a Bodhisattva, because you first generate great compassion and then generate bodhicitta, and that's the point where you become a Bodhisattva. But still, generating great compassion is quite not easy, because that means compassion for all sentient beings without exception. Not compassion just for a limited number of beings, but compassion for all sentient beings. And also, great compassion isn't just wishing sentient beings to be free of suffering, but it's taking on the responsibility. I will do it. Okay. I am going to do what has to be done in order to free sentient beings from suffering. So that's the meaning of great compassion. So that's quite high level compassion. We need to work quite a bit to get to that point. But anyway, great compassion is the point at which one awakens the Mahayana lineage. But our teacher said, in general, to start awakening the lineage, we need to take refuge correctly and engage in purification and accumulation of merit. So we can do that by doing prostrations and doing mandala offerings, the Ngundo practices. So those are practices that will enable us to purify, accumulate merit, and that's working towards awakening our lineage. And we also have to meditate on the Lam Rim, the topics of the Lam Rim, the topics of the small scope and middle scope, and then meditate on the methods for generating great compassion, the bodhicitta, and so on. But this text also mentions there's 4 hindrances to awakening the lineage. And the first is predominance of afflictions, such as anger, attachment, and so on. So if one has a lot of strong afflictions in one's mind, then that is an obstacle to awakening the lineage. And so we need to learn how to manage our anger and our other afflictions so that they don't come up strongly and take us away from, generating great compassion and bodhicitta and so on. And the second is being held by negative companions. And so this is like bad friends. And so it could be people who actually want to harm us or create problems for us or create obstacles for us. But it could also be people who might be very friendly, but don't have a good influence on us. For example, they may want us to spend time with them and do things that aren't particularly helpful for our Dharma practice, like, just sightseeing or gossiping, or people who might just kind of wear down our determination to practice the Dharma and to follow the path, because they don't have those attitudes themselves. So I think it means anybody that is not helpful and may even be harmful to our practice of Dharma. Third is being deprived of the necessities of life. So if we lack the basic resources like food and medicine and so on, then that makes it very difficult to practice, to engage in practice, to be able to awaken the Mahayana lineage. But our teacher said it also includes mental necessities, not just physical ones like food, but mental ones. So that includes things like having the right attitude and the right motivation to practice. And the fourth is being under the control of others. So, for example, being in prison, people who are incarcerated or under the control of their families or their spouse or their children. So, some people have those kind of situations where they're not completely free to practice as they want, to do what they want and go where they want, but forced to follow the wishes of others. So that can become an obstacle to practicing the Dharma and then awakening the lineage. So our teacher said, until we attain the path of preparation, we are almost always troubled by one or more of these four hindrances, but we become free from them on the path of preparation. So only completely free of these on the Mahayana path of separation. And that's why this topic number 4, lineage abiding in the nature, is referring specifically to the Buddha nature in the mind of a Bodhisattva on the path of seeing. It's because it's at that point that the Bodhisattva is free of these four hindrances to awakening the lineage. And it's also said that there are signs showing that the Mahayana lineage has been awakened in somebody. So a person who has not yet entered the path, when they hear teachings on the vast and extensive Dharma, for example, teachings on great compassion and bodhicitta and so on, tears come to their eyes and their body hairs stand on end. Maybe not just once, but consistently. If somebody has those kinds of experiences, then that's considered a sign their lineage has been awakened. So what we can take from this is the understanding that we have within our mind the potential for enlightenment, for awakening, for Buddhahood. So we hear that. We hear a lot about how, all sentient beings have Buddha nature, but it's important to understand what exactly is Buddha nature, not just have some vague idea about it, but what exactly is Buddha nature, because then that makes it more effective to know what it is we have to develop. Yeah, and it's just so encouraging, so uplifting to know that we do have the potential for awakening. And there's two aspects of that: the emptiness of our mind, which means the mind is able to change, to transform, become free of afflictions, and develop all the positive qualities. And then the positive qualities themselves, like our love and our compassion. So we have those within us all the time, and they can't be destroyed. They can't be, that's what I find really helpful to think about. Even if I get in a really negative state of mind, or I do really negative things, the Buddha nature can never be damaged, can never be destroyed, can never be lost. And so meditating on Lam Rim, and then doing practices to purify and accumulate merit, this will help the lineage to get awakened. So there are things we can do right now to start awakening our Mahayana lineage. And we can work on overcoming these four hindrances, like learn methods for working on our afflictions so that our mind doesn't get totally taken over, hijacked by anger and attachment and so forth. And try to ensure that you associate with good friends, with people that help you in your practice and don't take you away from your practice or cause hindrances to your practice. And of course, working on generating compassion and wisdom, the two wings of the bird, the two wings of the path, compassion and wisdom. Yeah, so there's a lot of things we can do right now, even if we're still far from the path of preparation or even the path of accumulation, but there are things we can do to work towards this. Okay, then next is number 5, 5th of the 10 topics is called Object of Observation of a Mahayana Achieving. So again, a Mahayana achieving is a term that just refers to a path or a practice of a Bodhisattva. Okay, so the definition of an object of observation is a basis of elimination of superimpositions by a Mahayana achieving. So these are objects that are referred to or observed by a bodhisattva in their practice or in their path in order to eliminate superimpositions. So superimpositions are of various types. In general, there are things that don't exist, but we think they do. So, for example, true existence, a truly existing I, truly existing body, truly existing anything. Okay, so a truly existing anything doesn't exist, and yet we believe in it. We have this conception, believing in true existence. Also permanence, things that are not permanent, they're impermanent, but we have superimposition thinking that they are impermanent. Sorry, they are permanent. Thinking that we won't die. Okay, so there's lots of superimpositions. Also, our afflictions, our delusions, are superimpositions. So anger, for example, when we have anger towards a person, then the mind, or our mind, not deliberately, but it's just the way that our mind works, we exaggerate the negative qualities of the person, and we may even project negative qualities that aren't there. So we kind of build up this image of the person as being 100% bad, horrible, negative. Yeah. So those are superimpositions. And then with attachment, it's the opposite. When somebody we like, somebody we find attractive, appealing, our mind will superimpose more good qualities, more attractiveness onto that person, and build up this image of the person being 100% wonderful, fantastic. So those are some examples of superimpositions. But the main superimposition that, according to this school, the Svatantrika school, the main superimposition is the conception of true existence. And grasping at true existence can occur with any object, any basis. And so that's why this particular point, the object of observation for eliminating superimposition, includes all phenomena. So all phenomena, whatever exists, is an object of observation to eliminate superimpositions. So our teacher said, what is the process of eliminating superimpositions? Basically, we have to investigate. We just take an ordinary object like a car, for example. Does it exist or not exist? What is its nature? Is it permanent or impermanent? Does it exist truly? Does it have true existence from its own side, and so on? So we have to investigate like a scientist. And through the process of investigation, we can remove erroneous ideas about the object, erroneous appearances, and improve our mind and eventually attain the state of an Arya. So there's 11 divisions. We won't go through all of them, but just to give an example, the first 3 of the 11 divisions are virtue, non-virtue, and the unspecified or neutral, another way of saying it. So what a bodhisattva would do is they would analyze, and here it just gives examples of sort of conventional existence. Bodhisattva comes to understand what is virtuous and to be adopted, to be practiced. So they develop a very clear understanding of what is virtuous so that they can practice what is virtuous, and what is to be discarded, non-virtue, like killing and so forth, and what is to be set aside in neutrality, for example, unspecified actions of the body. So that's just like neutral actions or neutral karma, neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. So those are just some examples of objects of observation. And in this section, there's a very long and complicated debate, which might be just hypothetical, I don't know, between the Svatantrikas and the Chittamatrans about an Arya's meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness. And what are the objects of observation of that mind? And I won't, anyway, it's a long debate, but the conclusion, according to our school, meaning the Svatantrika, is that all phenomena are objects of observation of this mind of an Arya. That's talking about an Arya, someone who's got the direct realization of emptiness, when they are in meditation, focusing on emptiness, directly realizing emptiness. Normally it's said that the only thing that appears to that mind is emptiness. Only emptiness appears and everything else disappears. No conventional phenomena, no conventional truths appear, only emptiness. And so in this debate, our side says that even though only emptiness appears to that mind, all phenomena are objects of observation of that mind. So what that means is to be an object of observation, it doesn't have to appear. An object of observation doesn't need to actually appear to be an object of observation. And the reason that it said that all phenomena are objects of observation of this Arya's meditative equipoise is because they're the bases for eliminating superimposition. So it is said that when an Arya realizes emptiness directly, even if maybe they were meditating on just one object, like a table or their body or their eye, they were meditating on one object and realizing the emptiness of that one object. But when you have the direct realization of emptiness, you are realizing the emptiness of all phenomena. That's only true with the direct realization of emptiness, but not with conceptual realization of emptiness. But the direct realization of emptiness is said to realize the emptiness of inherent existence, or true existence rather, of all phenomena, because it's the same nature. We went through this before with when we were looking at the ultimate truth and conventional truth. The nature of all emptinesses is the same. All emptiness have the same nature, just like all grains of sugar have the same taste. So that's what it said. I don't know. I don't have that experience, but that may also be connected with this. That when an Arya is realizing the emptiness of one phenomena, they're realizing the emptiness of all phenomena. And in that way, they're eliminating the superimposition of true existence with respect to all phenomena. Kind of mind-blowing. But anyway, the point here is that Bodhisattva needs to eliminate superimpositions, wrong ways of seeing things, especially true existence. That's the main one with regard to all phenomena. But the realization, the direct realization of the emptiness itself is the ultimate way of eliminating all those superimpositions. But before that time, you may have to eliminate other superimpositions, like thinking so-and-so is a jerk. And yeah, they're not that bad. They have good qualities too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, then let's see if we can do another one or two. Number 6 is object of intent of a Mahayana achieving. So this is talking about the goal, what a bodhisattva wants to achieve. And so the definition is the final result that is the object of intent for which one engages. And this exists only on Buddha ground, meaning, the state of Buddhahood, the state of enlightenment, and it's synonymous with Buddha. So this is the object of intent. This is what a bodhisattva is aiming for, being a Buddha. But it has three divisions. These are called three greatnesses. Three greatnesses. First one is the great heroic mind. Great heroic mind, and this refers to the compassion in the mind of a Buddha. Buddha's compassion is the highest possible level of compassion that anybody could have. This compassion enacts the supremacy of all sentient beings, meaning wishing all sentient beings without exception to become Buddhas, and completely dedicated to making that happen. Buddhas just tirelessly dedicated to ensuring each and every sentient being will reach enlightenment, and they will continue working towards that until every last sentient being has reached enlightenment. That's the Buddha's compassion. So this is what the Bodhisattva aspires to achieve. The second is the Great Abandonment. This refers to the non-abiding nirvana of a Buddha, meaning the cessation of all obscurations, afflictive obscurations, knowledge obscurations, all stains, all defilements. Every last trace of stain has been completely eliminated such that it will never occur again. So only Buddha's mind is free of all obscurations. And Arhat has eliminated the afflictive obscurations, but they still have the knowledge obscurations to omniscience, but a Buddha has eliminated those as well. So again, this is something a bodhisattva is striving to achieve. And the third is the great realization, and this is the omniscient exalted wisdom of a Buddha, realizing the selflessness of persons and the selflessness of phenomena, seeing all phenomena as they exist, conventionally, ultimately, seeing all, whatever exists, conventional truths, ultimate truths. So again, this is what a bodhisattva aspires for, wishes to achieve. So Bodhisattva engages in Mahayana achievings, Mahayana practices, in order to achieve these three greatnesses. And they do that because they want to enact the welfare of all sentient beings. So they're objects of intent of bodhisattvas, but they only exist on Buddha ground, the continuum on Buddha. So I prepared one more. Let's see if we can get through that. And see if there's any questions you'd like to ask. So the seventh is called Achieving of Armor. And actually, the last 4 of the 10 topics in chapter 1 are all called achievings, 4 different kinds of achievings. And again, it can be any practice or path in the mind of a bodhisattva, but these are specific kinds of practice. So achieving of armor is a bodhisattva's yoga. Now, yoga, when we hear the word yoga, we usually think of physical posture. the Bodhisattva's yoga is mainly mental. It's a mental state, and yeah, it's like a realization. So it's Bodhisattva's yoga conjoined with an extensive attitude, desiring to practice inclusively the 6 perfections, generosity and so forth, in their entirety within each of the 6 perfections. So what this means is when a Bodhisattva is practicing any of the 6 perfections, they practice all 6 together. I'll give an example of that in a little while, but the reason that it's called armor, they use the word armor, is because just as soldiers, well, in the old days anyway, they had armor that they would wear. Now they have bulletproof vests and things like that. So they wear something to protect themselves from harm when they're in battle. So the Bodhisattvas practice this way. They practice all the 6 perfections together within each of the 6 perfections in order to protect their mind from faults and mistakes. So it's protection for the mind, because otherwise there's a danger that, for example, when practicing generosity, one might make some mistake in terms of ethics or in terms of patience and so on. So they need to practice all 6 together to prevent that kind of thing happening, to protect their mind from mistakes. And it starts from the Mahayana path of accumulation through the end of a sentient being's continuum. So there's that expression, because just before enlightenment, you know, like the last moment before you're a Buddha, you're still a sentient being. So they talk about that last moment of being a sentient being. That's the end of a sentient being's continuum. So that means until you stop being a Bodhisattva and then you become a Buddha. So from the path of accumulation all the way to the last moment, just before Buddhahood, then this is how a Bodhisattva practices. But of course, before they have to train in each of the 6 perfections individually and learn how to put them all together and practice them all together. So they have to prepare a lot. So let's just take an example, generosity or giving, the first of the 6 perfections. So there's the generosity of generosity. That means when you practice generosity, you accumulate merit, virtue, and you give that away. You don't even have miserliness with regard to the virtue you create. You might think, oh, I've created all this virtue and then I'll become wealthy in the future. So the Bodhisattva doesn't think like that. So they want to even give away the virtue they create from their practice of generosity to others, for the happiness of others. And then, of course, they dedicate the merit from practicing generosity to enlightenment, to help all sentient beings. So they don't even hang on to the merit, the virtue they create from practicing generosity. So that's the meaning of generosity. Then the ethics of generosity. So while practicing generosity, they also practice ethics, the 2nd perfection. And so that means they have to avoid doing anything unethical. Our teacher said an example of that would be miserliness. That's the kind of being unethical, holding back, being miserly. But I think we know there's probably more gross examples as well, like, yeah, just not keeping your vows, not following ethical discipline. I mean, the obvious example is like Robin Hood, you know, stealing from one person to give to somebody else. But I think a Bodhisattva would be far beyond that. But yeah, just to ensure that when you're practicing generosity, you don't do anything unethical. Then the patience of generosity. So when giving, it might be that the person doesn't show appreciation, doesn't say thank you. They might even complain. Why did you give me that? I wanted that. Why don't you give me more? That does happen. So, you know, it's possible to get angry in that kind of situation. So Bodhisattva would, maintain patience not get angry when facing hardships, when they're practicing generosity and so on. And then the joyous effort of generosity, that's practicing generosity regardless of any hardships that you undergo, having enthusiasm, not getting tired, not getting bored. So being joyful and enthusiastic about your practice of generosity. And then the concentration of generosity is maintaining an undistracted mind, keeping your mind focused on what you're doing, and focused on all the thoughts you're supposed to have while practicing generosity, compassion and love and so on. And then the wisdom, well, the wisdom of generosity. So wisdom is mainly the wisdom of emptiness, of true existence. So Bodhisattva needs to remember the emptiness of the three circles or the three spheres, the agent, the action, the object. So in the case of generosity, themselves, the person practicing generosity, making this gift, is empty of true existence. The recipient, the person you're giving to, is also empty of true existence. And then the gift that you're giving, or the act of giving, either one, that's the third sphere. So that too is empty of inherent existence, or true existence, sorry. So just remembering that each of those three aspects of the act of giving is empty of true existence. So pretty mind-blowing. That's just the example with one of the 6 perfections. So you could do the same with each of the others. So when practicing ethics, then you have the giving of ethics, the ethics of ethics, and patience of ethics, and so on and so forth. And so there are 6 divisions: achievings of armor of generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, wisdom. But you could also expand it to 36 divisions, because 6 times 6, 36 different practices in one. So there's been a lot of material tonight. Do any of you have a question you would like to ask?
I was just thinking, it seems like if you were practicing,
We use this to,
And it's not working.
Yeah.
oh,
I think we're coming through or being heard.
Okay. It seems like if we were practicing the 6 perfections in this way, that you just described, that it would really affect the purity of your motivation. It would really be strong and really forceful, it seems like. I would think.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we can start working towards this. Yeah. So the more we get familiar with bodhicitta and the 6 perfections, and then try out practicing all 6 within each one, and that's how eventually we can get to the point where every time we practice one of the 6 perfections, we've got all 6 together in one. But for sure, yeah, incredible mindfulness and dedication to this practice of the Bodhisattva's path. So I find it quite mind-blowing. I'm not at the point where I can do this, but I think it's wonderful to work towards, to aspire towards. Somebody on the screen has a question. Yeah. You can unmute yourself and ask.
We have a question in the chat,
Okay.
or I'm sorry, would you like to ask your question? Unmute and ask your question, or I could read what you have in the chat.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'll read. I'm sorry, it's long. But basically I was trying to understand a little bit better about the lineage abiding in the nature. So when you're speaking about that, are you talking about like when an arhat or bodhisattva still have like remnants of an affliction? I don't know if I'm wrong, but for example, like they still have subtle attachments, but the wisdom of realizing emptiness has like cut the ignorance and afflictions at their root. So it does not arise, those afflictions do not arise in their mind. Am I thinking about that in the right way?
Hmm.
I'm sorry, that was really
Well,
long.
Well, lineage abiding in the nature refers to the emptiness of true existence of our mind. And that's there in everybody's mind, even in a mosquito. They have emptiness of their mind. It's just the nature, the ultimate nature, the true nature of the mind. So that's always there. That's existing in every living being. But a bodhisattva meditates on emptiness, and so they come to know, they come to understand, to recognize the emptiness of their own mind, and so they are aware of their Buddha nature, and they are working with it. They are meditating on it and using their understanding of emptiness to purify their mind, to get rid of their afflictions. And it takes time to get rid of the afflictions, so they don't just all go at once. The acquired ones, they are all knocked out at one go when you reach the path of seeing, but you still have innate afflictions. So there's still attachment and anger and so on in the mind. But by that time, a bodhisattva who's that highly attained, the afflictions haven't been abandoned, but they're not jumping around in their mind. They're not kind of coming up and causing their mind to be disturbed, and they're just, very much under control, very much suppressed. And then gradually they're able to eliminate more and more deeper levels of them until finally at Buddhahood, every last trace of affliction and obscuration is completely gone, completely eliminated. So if you're talking about a bodhisattva, it depends on where that bodhisattva is at in their path. If they're still on the first two paths, path of accumulation, path of preparation, they might still have attachment coming up. They might still have anger coming up, but they're probably pretty good at keeping them under control.
So at that point, does it mean that they haven't had a direct realization of the emptiness of hands?
Right.
Because they're
On the
still
first,
working through it.
yeah,
Okay.
the first two paths, they do have, well, it depends on the individual. They do have some understanding of emptiness, and as they go along, it gets better and better, stronger and stronger. And it's only when they reach the third path, the path of seeing, that's when they have the direct realization of emptiness. And that's like a really powerful weapon against the afflictions.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And an arhat is somebody who has eliminated all the afflictions. So they don't have any more afflictions in their mind. But if it's a hearer arhat or a solitary realizer arhat, they still have the other kind of obscuration, the knowledge obscuration, or the obscurations to omniscience, or they're also called cognitive obscurations. So those are the ones that prevent Buddhahood. So an arhat still has those in their mind, but afflictions like anger, attachment, and so on, those are gone.
Back to the very beginning, we acquired afflictive obscurations.
Louder and they might
Yeah.
be able to get you.
I really try, I can understand the acquired views as obscurations.
They
but to-
acquired what?
the acquired views or wrong views but acquired afflictions themselves, it's hard for me to discern what is an acquired affliction that would stay with you for so long, and how is that different from an innate one?
Yeah. Well, I think they they don't really give examples of it very much, but in, is it volume, I think it's volume 3,
Yes.
but
Yes, we've been
yeah,
through it before.
page 124. Yeah, it does give some examples in there. For example, you know, because of one's birth in a particular country or in a particular religion or in a particular family, then you acquire certain kinds of ideas about identity
Mhm.
and country and
Mhm.
religion. And as a result of that, my religion is best, my country is best. Then you could have attachment coming up, or anger coming up, hostility coming up based on those. So those would be acquired. So it doesn't have to be, oh, you study some mistaken tenets, you know, like the Samkhyas, and you get, so even the things that we acquire in our families and in our education system and in our society that lead us to have certain afflictions. Those would be example of acquired ones.
Okay. I can see that as an acquired view that would lead to the affliction, but it's hard for me to get how that is actually.
Well, I think it's anger or attachment based on those views.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
America is the
Yeah,
greatest country in the world. Anybody who insults my country or
Yes.
tries to attack my country, getting angry at them. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
would be,
So that is the kind of.
that's not something we're born with.
Right,
You know,
that's
we
true.
acquire due to our upbringing, due to our education.
So that's a pretty
societies.
huge clearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Venerable Khadro,
Yeah.
may I ask, would it also make sense, because I'm trying to understand that, would it make sense to say it's kind of like an acquired hindrance? Because I get they're based in the afflictions, like you get angry because someone is insulting your nationality. So that aspect is acquired, but that, I'm guessing, attitude or idea triggers the affliction, but it almost feels more like it's a hindrance.
Well,
Or afflictions are hindrances, maybe. Yeah.
they are hindrances. They are mainly hindrances to attaining liberation, freedom from samsara. So they are things that keep us stuck in samsara. Okay, so if we want to be free of samsara, we have to overcome those. Also enlightenment, right? They're also hindrances to enlightenment. So they have to be eliminated to reach enlightenment. So they're definitely hindrances. And they cause lots of problems and suffering, even in this lifetime. So, yeah, it's really good to learn more about the afflictions and their consequences, both on ourselves and on others, and in our situation in samsara, and get a really good case against them so that we're very convinced that we must overcome them. We must be free of them. And then emptiness, realizing emptiness is the way to do that.
Thank you so much.
Strong incentive to learn emptiness and meditate on it. So we better stop there. We went a little bit over time. So let's dedicate the merit, the positive energy we've generated here tonight. What we're doing is very, very beneficial, learning about the Bodhisattva's path, and hopefully it helps us have greater aspiration, greater wish to follow this path and reach the goal, Buddhahood, to benefit all sentient beings. So even if we don't fully understand everything, just listening, just getting imprints on our mind on these teachings is very, very powerful, very beneficial. So let's share this merit, this positive energy with all other beings, that it will be the cause for all of us to, as quickly as possible, become free of all suffering and reach the state of enlightenment. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. And may the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen, arise, and grow,
And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more.
Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-fulfilling, wish-granting jewel, source of every benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Thank you. See you next week. Good night.